At 72 years old, I returned from a doctor's appointment to find strangers occupying my house. My own daughter said, "We've already decided, Mom, you're going to a nursing home." My grandson was already packing my things into cardboard boxes. I stayed calm and said just one sentence. "Before I begin, tell me in the comments which state or country you are watching from. I love knowing where the people who follow my stories come from." I am 72 years old, and I thought I knew my daughter. I thought that after everything I went through to raise her, after every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every penny saved, she would be different, that she would see me, that she would care. I was wrong. The appointment with the cardiologist had been at 3 p.m. Nothing serious, just the routine checkup that every senior citizen has to do. My blood pressure was a little high, but controlled with medication. The doctor said I was doing well considering my age. He told me to keep walking in the mornings, keep my diet light, and not to stress. Not to stress, as if life permitted that choice. I returned home at 5:15 p.m. I remember the time because I looked at the clock on the Uber's dashboard, calculating if I would still have time to make something delicious for dinner. My grandson, Matthew, loved my roast chicken. He was 10 years old and always asked me to make it on the days he visited. I thought I'd surprise him. I tipped the driver, grabbed my bag, that brown leather one I've used for 15 years, and walked toward the front door. The house was too big for me. I knew that now. 3 bedrooms, a large living room, a spacious kitchen where I raised my daughter alone after my husband died. He was barely 42 when the heart attack took him. I was 35, and our daughter, Rachel, was 5. I sold the small apartment we lived in. I used his life insurance and bought this house in a nice suburb. It was my pride. Every brick represented a choice I made. Every room held a memory of struggle and survival. I put the key in the lock and noticed something strange. The door was unlocked. My first thought was that I had forgotten to lock it in the morning. Sometimes that happened. Age brings those small lapses, though I hated to admit it. But no, I clearly remembered turning the deadbolt twice, just as I always did. I pushed the door open slowly. Voices. Many voices. And laughter coming from the living room. I walked in, and the smell was the first thing to hit me. Freshly brewed coffee and something sweet, maybe a cinnamon coffee cake. But it wasn't my coffee. It wasn't my food. The smell was different, alien in my own home. I walked down the hallway and stopped at the entrance to the living room. There were at least 6 people there. Some I recognized. They looked like acquaintances of my daughter, perhaps colleagues from work or friends. Others were complete strangers. They were sitting on my sofa, in my armchairs, drinking from my mugs, as if this were their house. A blonde woman I had never seen before laughed loudly at some joke. A bearded man was scrolling on his phone with his bare feet on my coffee table, the one I bought at an antique shop 20 years ago. I stood there, invisible, with my bag still hanging from my arm. That was when I saw Rachel coming out of the kitchen with a tray of cookies. My daughter, 42 years old, her black hair pulled back in a perfect bun, wearing that blue dress I gave her last Christmas. She was smiling, attending to people as if she were the perfect hostess. Then her eyes met mine. The smile didn't falter. She didn't seem surprised or embarrassed. She just set the tray on the table and came toward me with that expression I knew well, the look of someone about to explain something obvious to someone who doesn't understand anything. "Mom," she said, and her voice was calm, almost gentle. "We need to talk." I didn't answer. I just looked at her, then at the strangers in my living room, and then back at her. "Come with me," Rachel said, taking me by the arm with delicacy and guiding me to the hallway. We passed the dining room, where 2 other people I didn't know were sitting, and continued to my bedroom. That was when I saw the boxes. Cardboard boxes stacked next to my bed, open boxes, already half filled with my clothes, my books, my belongings. My grandson Matthew was there, folding one of my winter coats with exaggerated care, as if he were following precise instructions. "Matthew," I said, and my voice came out weak, almost soundless. He looked up at me. 10 years old, brown hair just like his mom's, green eyes he inherited from the grandfather he never met. For a second, I saw guilt on his face, but then he looked at Rachel as if asking for permission to speak, and went back to folding the coat. "Mom, sit down," Rachel said, pointing to the bed. I didn't sit. I remained standing, facing my daughter, waiting for an explanation that made sense, some explanation that wasn't what my heart already knew it was. Rachel sighed that tired sigh she always gave when she thought I was being difficult. "We've decided," she began, "that it's time for you to go to a more appropriate place." Every word fell like a stone. "Appropriate?" I repeated. "A place where you'll have proper care, the company of people your age, activities. You're going to love it, Mom. I've done a lot of research. It's a very nice facility upstate, with a garden, a lounge, a nursing home," I said. It wasn't a question. "An assisted living residence," Rachel corrected, as if changing the words changed the reality. "You're getting older. This house is too big. It's dangerous. What if you fall down the stairs? What if you have an emergency at night and there's no one here to help you?" My voice came out firmer than I expected. "I have lived here for 37 years. I have never fallen. I have never had an emergency." "Not yet," Rachel said, and there was something in her eyes I couldn't identify. It wasn't concern. It was determination. "But it's a matter of time. Mom, you're 72. You can't live alone anymore." "Who says I can't?" "I say so. And I've already discussed it with Richard, too." Richard was her husband, a man who always seemed very polite, very proper, and very calculating to me. He worked in finance, always talking about yields and the real estate market. "And what does Richard have to do with my house?" I asked. Rachel hesitated. Barely half a second, but she hesitated. "We think it's better for you to go to the residence, and since this house is very big and you won't need it anymore. You two are going to move in here," I finished. She didn't deny it. She just lifted her chin in that defensive way she always did when she knew she was wrong but didn't want to admit it. "It makes sense, Mom. The house is in your name, but eventually, it will be mine anyway. We're just speeding things up. And we'll take care of everything. The maintenance, the property taxes, everything. You won't have to worry about a thing." I looked at the boxes, at my grandson avoiding my gaze, at my daughter looking at me with that immovable certainty of someone who believes they are doing the right thing. "You decided everything," I said quietly. "Without asking me. Because you knew I would resist. You're stubborn, Mom. You always have been. But this time you have to trust me. I'm doing what's best for you." Something inside me, something that had been asleep for a long time, began to wake up. It wasn't anger, not yet. It was clarity, that cold, cutting clarity that arrives when you finally see the truth you had been avoiding. I took a deep breath. My heart was racing. I could feel it, but I kept my voice calm. "And my opinion?" I asked. "Do I not have the right to decide about my own life?" Rachel sighed again. "Mom, you've had a whole life of decisions. Now it's time to let me take care of you. Trust me." That was when I said it. Just one sentence. Calm, clear, definitive. "I want everyone out of my house in 30 minutes. The bedroom went silent. Rachel blinked as if she hadn't understood. Matthew stopped folding the coat, his hands suspended in the air. "Excuse me?" Rachel said. And for the first time, I heard uncertainty in her voice. "You heard me. I want you, your husband, your son, and all those strangers out of my house. Now." "Mom, you're not thinking clearly." "I am thinking very clearly," I said. And every word came out firm. "This is my house. I pay the utilities. I decide who comes in and who goes out. And I am deciding that you are leaving." Rachel's expression changed. The veneer of maternal concern vanished, revealing something harder underneath. She crossed her arms. "You're being irrational." "Maybe," I replied, "but it is my irrationality in my house. We are trying to help you, isn't that right? You are trying to get me out of the way." Rachel took a step forward, raising her voice. "This is ridiculous. Do you think I want your house? Do you think I'm doing this out of self-interest?" I didn't answer. I just stared at her. And my silence said it all. She turned red. "I can't believe it. After everything we've done for you." "What exactly have you done for me, Rachel?" My voice came out colder than I intended. "Tell me." "Do the math. I want to hear it." She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. I come here every week. You come once a month, if that, and always in a rush, always with some excuse to leave early. I have a life. A job, a family. I had one too," I said. "And yet, I raised you alone." Rachel recoiled as if I had slapped her. Matthew was still there, frozen, holding the coat. I looked at my grandson, and my heart tightened. He wasn't to blame. He was just a child following his parents' orders. "Matthew, sweetie," I said softly. "You can leave my things there. Thank you for helping, but it's not necessary anymore." He looked at his mom, unsure. "Matthew." "Continue," Rachel ordered, her voice tense. "Rachel," my voice cut through the air like a knife, "do not use your son as a shield. You know you are wrong. You've always known." She looked at me for a long moment, then turned around and stomped out of the bedroom. I heard voices in the living room, Rachel speaking fast, explaining something. The chatter ceased. There was movement, sounds of people getting up, grabbing bags and coats. I stood there, listening as my house emptied. Steps in the hallway, the front door opening and closing several times. Voices outside, curious, confused. Matthew looked at me one last time before leaving. There was something in his eyes. An apology, perhaps, or confusion. I didn't have time to figure it out. Rachel appeared in the doorway and called him with a sharp gesture. When finally only Rachel and I remained in the hallway, she turned to me one last time. "You're going to regret this," she said, her voice trembling with contained rage. "Maybe," I replied, "but it will be my regret, my life. You are a stubborn, ungrateful old woman." The words should have hurt. They should have made me back down, apologize, smooth things over as I had done all my life. But they didn't hurt. They only confirmed what I already knew. "That may be," I said calmly. "But I am a stubborn, ungrateful old woman in my own house." Rachel left, slamming the door. I stood there in the silence that followed. The house, which minutes before was full of voices and movement, was now absolutely still. I could hear the clock in the living room, that old pendulum one that belonged to my mother. Tick-tock, tick-tock, tick-tock. I walked slowly toward the living room. The signs of the invasion were still everywhere. Dirty mugs on the table, crumbs on the sofa, a cushion out of place. I started to clean up. I took the mugs to the kitchen, washed them one by one with care. I arranged the cushions, wiped down the table, cleaned every trace of those people until the house looked like mine again. When I finished, it was almost 7 p.m. I sat in my favorite armchair, the one near the window where I can see the garden, and let exhaustion wash over me. It wasn't just physical tiredness, it was something deeper. The exhaustion of someone who has just discovered she was betrayed by her own daughter. Because that's what it was, wasn't it? Betrayal. Rachel hadn't acted out of concern. She had acted out of convenience, out of self-interest. She wanted my house and thought I would be easy to remove, like an old piece of furniture that serves no purpose anymore. The tears came without warning. I didn't cry with dramatic sobs, just silent tears running down my face, wetting my blouse. I cried for the daughter I thought I had raised, and for the daughter who actually existed. I cried for the years of sacrifice that meant nothing to her. I cried for the loneliness of realizing I was truly alone in the world. When the tears dried, I wiped my face and got up. I went to my bedroom, looked at the boxes still open, my clothes half folded. I started unpacking everything. I took my clothes out of the boxes and put them back in the closet, every garment in its place. I returned my books to the shelf, put away my belongings. I wasn't going anywhere. They weren't going to push me out of my own life as if I were a nuisance. But while I was organizing, a rational part of my mind began to work. Rachel wasn't going to give up. I knew my daughter too well. She believed she was right, and people who believe they are right do not stop easily. I needed to protect myself. I needed to ensure this wouldn't happen again. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. First, I called my lawyer. Mr. Henderson had handled my papers for years since I bought the house. He was a meticulous, careful man, exactly the type of person I needed now. "Mrs. Martha," he said when he answered. "What a surprise! How can I help you?" I told him everything. Every detail, from arriving home to kicking Rachel out. He listened in silence, asking occasional questions, writing down information. "I understand," he said when I finished. "And what would you like to do?" "I want to guarantee this doesn't happen again. I want to protect my house, my decisions. I want the certainty that while I am alive and lucid, no one can remove me from here against my will." "That is entirely possible," Mr. Henderson replied. "We can draft some documents. A power of attorney with very specific instructions, naming someone you trust only for situations of proven incapacity. We can also update your will." Include clauses that protect your interests. Do it, I said. The sooner, the better. We agreed to meet in 2 days. I hung up the phone, feeling a little safer, but still vulnerable. Rachel had keys to the house. She could come back at any moment. I called a locksmith. By 2 p.m., all the locks were changed. They were new, modern, deadbolts, more secure. The locksmith handed me 3 keys. One I kept with me. Another I hid in a safe place. And the third was kept for emergencies. Then I did something I never thought I would do. I installed cameras. Not many. One at the front door, one at the back door, one in the living room. Small, discreet, but functional. The technician who installed them taught me how to view the images on my cell phone. It's simple, Mrs. Martha, he explained with patience. You open the app here, and you can see everything in real time. If someone shows up, you get a notification. I practiced a few times until I was sure I knew how to use it. When everything was ready, I sat back in my armchair and looked around. The house looked the same, but something had changed. It wasn't just the locks or the cameras. It was me. For 3 days, nothing happened. No calls, no visits. Total silence from Rachel. The silence was worse than the anger. It meant she was planning something. On the 4th day, the doorbell rang. I checked my phone before opening. A woman was at the door. Middle-aged, formal clothes, leather briefcase in hand. I didn't recognize her. I opened the door just a crack, with the security chain still on. Mrs. Martha Evans? She asked with a professional smile. Yes? My name is Miss Paula Miller. I am a social worker. Your daughter contacted me, concerned about your situation. My stomach churned. My situation. She mentioned that you live alone, that you are of advanced age, and that you might need some kind of assistance. I don't need assistance, I said, keeping my voice polite but firm. I'm sure you don't, Mrs. Martha, but if you'll allow me to come in, we can chat a bit. It's just an informal evaluation, nothing official. I just want to make sure everything is okay with you. I stood there, debating internally. Part of me wanted to tell the woman to get lost, close the door, and that's it. But another part, the part that still believed in doing things correctly, knew that refusing might look suspicious. One moment, I said. I closed the door, undid the chain, and opened it completely. Come in, please. Miss Miller entered, looking around with that appraising gaze that professionals learn to disguise but never manage to hide completely. I offered her coffee. She accepted. We went to the kitchen, and while I prepared it, she continued asking questions. How long have you been living alone? Since my daughter got married, 17 years. And how has it been? Can you take care of the house by yourself? I looked at my clean, organized kitchen, everything in its place, as you can see, perfectly. And the grocery shopping, do you do it yourself? I go to the market every week. I walk there. It's good exercise. Medications, do you take any? For blood pressure. I take them every day at the same time. I never forget. She wrote everything down in a small notebook. I served the coffee, and we sat at the table. Does Mrs. Martha have friends, neighbors she talks to? Yes. Mrs. Higgins lives 3 houses down. We have coffee together twice a week. Mr. Baker, who owns the corner store, always stops to chat. The young lady at the pharmacy knows my prescriptions by heart. And your daughter? How often do you see her? I hesitated. The social worker noticed. You can speak freely, Mrs. Martha. I am here to help. I decided to be honest. Until last week, she came to visit me about once a month, always in a rush. Now, I haven't spoken to her. Why? I told her. Not every detail, but enough. Coming home, the strangers, the boxes, the plan to send me to a nursing home without asking me. Paula listened without interrupting. When I finished, she stayed silent for a moment. And how did you feel about that? She asked gently. Betrayed, I answered without hesitation. Discarded, as if my opinion didn't matter. She nodded, writing something else down. Mrs. Martha, I'm going to be frank with you. Your daughter is concerned, but from what I see here, you are perfectly capable of taking care of yourself. The house is clean. You are lucid, oriented. I see no reason for any kind of intervention. I felt an enormous relief. And is that official? Will that go in a report? I will make a report, yes. And I will make it clear that I found an independent, capable woman who is living very well on her own. She finished her coffee, asked me a couple more questions about my routine, my health, and my activities. Then she stood up. "Thank you very much for the coffee, Mrs. Martha. And if you need anything at all, here is my card." I accepted the card and walked her to the door. As soon as she left, I immediately called Mr. Henderson. "They sent a social worker," I said bluntly. "It was to be expected," he replied calmly. "Your daughter is trying to build a case that you do not have the conditions to take care of yourself. But if the professional was ethical, and from what you tell me, it seems she was, that actually favors you." "How?" "Because now there is an official report stating that everything is fine with you. If your daughter attempts something more drastic, like a guardianship petition, for example, that report will weigh against her." Guardianship. The word froze my blood. She can do that? Declare me incompetent? She can try, but it is a long and complex process, and she would need a lot of proof that you are incapacitated, which is clearly not the case. I took a deep breath. "When can we meet to sign those papers?" "Tomorrow, if you like. They are already ready." The next day, I went to Mr. Henderson's office. He explained every document with patience, every clause, every legal protection we were establishing. I signed everything. The power of attorney, the updated will, my living will documents guaranteeing that my decisions would be respected while I was alive and capable. "And if she really tries for guardianship?" I asked. "We will fight, and we will win. You have all the mental and physical conditions. You have the social worker's report. You have regular medical follow-ups. There is no legal basis for guardianship." I left the office feeling stronger, more protected. But Rachel wasn't finished yet. 2 days later, I received a call. Unknown number. "Hello, Mrs. Martha. This is Mercy Hospital calling. Your daughter Rachel just checked in an hour ago. She is asking for you." My heart accelerated. "What happened? Is she okay?" "An anxiety attack. Nothing grave, but she insists on speaking with you." I grabbed my bag and left immediately. I called a taxi and went straight to the hospital. On the way, my head was spinning. Rachel had never had anxiety problems. Never. Something was wrong. When I arrived at the hospital, I went straight to the reception. "I'm here to see my daughter, Rachel Evans," they called me. The receptionist frowned. "One moment." She typed something into the computer. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but we don't have any patient by that name." I stood there, processing. "Are you sure?" "They called me from here less than an hour ago." "I'm sure. I checked all the admissions for today. There is no Rachel Evans." I returned home in a state of confusion and anger. It was a lie, a trick to get me out of my house. When I arrived, I checked the cameras on my phone, and there she was. Rachel had been there. During the 40 minutes I was out, she went to my house. The images showed her trying to open the door, discovering the locks had been changed, going around the house trying to find another entrance. After a few minutes, she gave up and left. But the message was clear. She wasn't going to stop. I saved the recordings, every single one of them. I copied them onto a USB drive. I backed them up to the cloud. I saved them in every way possible. If I needed proof that Rachel was harassing me, now I had it. But what hurt the most wasn't the harassment itself. It was the why. Why was my daughter the girl I raised alone, whom I carried, fed, clothed, and educated doing this? The answer was simple and painful. Money. The house was worth a lot. It wasn't a fortune, but in a market where houses were increasingly expensive, those 3 bedrooms in a quiet neighborhood meant financial security. They meant being able to sell for a good price or rent for a high amount. And Rachel was married to Richard, the finance man, the man who viewed everything in terms of numbers and profitability. Was it his idea? Had he planted that seed in my daughter's head? Or was Rachel always like this, and I simply didn't want to see it? I remembered when she was a teenager, always wanting the most expensive things, always comparing our modest house with the mansions of her rich friends. I remembered how disappointed she was when I sent her to the state university instead of the private college she wanted. "But Mom, all my friends are going to private college," she had complained. "And you are going to state. It's affordable, and the quality is excellent," I replied. She had been in a bad mood for weeks. Even so, I paid for everything she needed: books, materials, appropriate clothes for her internships. I worked double shifts as a seamstress to ensure she lacked nothing. And when she graduated, when she got the job at a big company, when she married Richard and moved into a nice apartment, I felt pride. I thought I had done everything right. But maybe not. Maybe by giving her everything, I created someone who felt entitled to everything, including my house, my life, and my decisions. The phone rang, pulling me from my thoughts. It was Mr. Henderson. "Mrs. Martha, I have to inform you of something. I received a notification today. Your daughter has filed a petition for guardianship." My whole body went cold. "But you said she had no legal basis." "And she doesn't. It is a weak lawsuit based only on your age and vague accusations that you are confused and making erratic decisions. But we will have to respond anyway. There will be a hearing." "When?" "In 3 weeks. Don't worry, we will be prepared. I will need you to get an evaluation with a geriatric physician, someone who can attest to your mental capacity. I'll do whatever is necessary." "Perfect. I will prepare everything and keep you informed." I hung up the phone with trembling hands. Guardianship. My own daughter was trying to declare me incompetent. If she succeeded, she would have total control over my life, my money, my house, every decision. They would treat me like a child, like someone who doesn't know what is best for herself. No, that was not going to happen. In the following days, I did exactly what Mr. Henderson asked. I went to 3 different doctors: a geriatrician, a neurologist, and a psychiatrist. Each one put me through a battery of tests. Memory tests, I managed to recall sequences of numbers, words, images. Reasoning tests, I solved logic problems, mental riddles. Orientation tests, I knew my full name, my date of birth, where I was, what day it was, who the president was. Physical tests, my motor coordination was perfect, my balance was good for my age. Every doctor reached the same conclusion. I was fully capable, lucid, oriented, with all my mental faculties intact. The medical certificates were sent directly to Mr. Henderson. Meanwhile, I continued with my normal life. Or tried to. I went to the market, chatted with neighbors, tended the garden. But there was a shadow over everything, the constant sensation of being watched, judged, waiting for the next attack. Rachel didn't show up again. She didn't call, didn't send a message. Absolute silence. But I knew she was preparing for the hearing, probably gathering whatever she believed served as proof of my incapacity. Mrs. Higgins, my neighbor, noticed my tension. "Martha, you look different," she said during one of our afternoon coffees. "Did something happen?" I told her everything. She listened with eyes wide open, shaking her head in disbelief. "Your own daughter." "I can't believe it. How is it possible?" "Believe it," I said with bitterness. "It is happening. And what are you going to do?" "Fight. I'm not going to let her take my independence." Mrs. Higgins took my hand. "If you need anything, anything at all, I'm here. I can testify for you, say that you are perfectly fine." "Thank you," I said, and for the first time in days I felt tears burning my eyes. It means a lot. The week before the hearing was the worst. I couldn't sleep well. I stayed awake in the early morning, staring at the ceiling, imagining scenarios. What if the judge believed Rachel? What if, despite all the medical certificates and proofs, he decided that a daughter knows what is best for her mother? What if I lost everything, my house, my freedom, my life? Mr. Henderson called me the night before the hearing. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Martha?" "Terrified," I admitted. "There is no reason to be. We have a solid case. 3 medical certificates validating your capacity. The social worker's report is favorable. Witnesses willing to speak to your independence. What does Rachel have? Vague accusations and her own ambition. And if that isn't enough, I will make it enough. Trust me, I have been through dozens of cases like this. I know how to recognize when someone is trying to take advantage of a senior citizen, and I know judges recognize it too." I slept poorly that night. I dreamed of my daughter as a little girl, with her laughter, with the time when she looked at me as if I were the most important person in the world. When had that love transformed into ambition? The morning of the hearing dawned cold. I put on my best clothes, a navy blue suit I bought for Rachel's wedding, and fixed my hair with care. I wanted to look exactly as I was, a lucid, capable woman who knew how to take care of herself. Mr. Henderson picked me up at the house. On the way to the courthouse, we reviewed everything once more. Be yourself. Answer the questions calmly and clearly. Do not let them provoke you. Do not show anger, even if you feel it. And if she is there, Rachel, she will be there. It is part of the process. But you don't have to look at her. You don't have to acknowledge her. Focus on the judge, on the questions, and on your answers. When we arrived at the courthouse, my heart was going 1,000 miles an hour, but my hands were steady. We entered the courtroom, and there she was, Rachel, sitting on the other side of the room with her lawyer, dressed conservatively, hair pulled back, no exaggerated makeup, trying to look like the concerned daughter. Our eyes crossed for half a second. I saw something in her look, defiance, determination, and perhaps a flash of guilt quickly repressed. I looked away and sat next to Mr. Henderson. The judge entered. He was a middle-aged man, gray hair, serious expression, but not harsh. The hearing began. Rachel's lawyer spoke first. He presented the petition for guardianship, alleging that I was of advanced age, living alone, without adequate conditions to care for myself. My client is deeply concerned for her mother's safety, he said with a solemn voice. Mrs. Martha is 72 years old. She lives alone in a house that is too big for her. Recently, she has demonstrated erratic behavior, hostility without reason, paranoia, as if protecting my own house was paranoia. Furthermore, the lawyer continued, Mrs. Martha rejected professional help, kicked family members out of her house, changed the locks as if they were chasing her. These are clear signs that something is not right. When he finished, it was Mr. Henderson's turn. Your Honor, he began with a calm and firm voice. What we are witnessing here is not a case of mental incapacity, but a clear and unscrupulous attempt by a daughter to seize control of her mother's assets. He presented the medical certificates one by one. He read relevant excerpts, patient, lucid, oriented in time and space, all cognitive tests within normal range. Does not present signs of dementia, Alzheimer's, or any other condition that compromises her decision-making capacity. Then he presented the social worker's report. The professional makes it clear that she found a lady perfectly capable of taking care of herself. Then, Henderson looked directly at the judge. Regarding the alleged erratic behavior, allow me to clarify what really happened. Mrs. Martha arrived home after a medical appointment and found the house full of strangers. She found her daughter distributing her belongings, making plans to send her to a nursing home without even consulting her. She found her things packed as if she were already dead. His voice rose a notch, indignant but controlled. Mrs. Martha reacted as any person in full possession of their mental faculties would react. She defended her house, her autonomy, her right to decide about her own life. She changed the locks because her daughter, the same one who now alleges concern, invaded her privacy. That isn't paranoia, Your Honor. It is self-preservation. The judge listened to everything in silence, making occasional notes. Then he spoke. I would like to ask Mrs. Martha some questions directly. I stood up, my legs trembling slightly, and approached the stand. Mrs. Martha, can you state your full name and date of birth? Martha Elizabeth Evans, born the 15th of March 1952. What day is it today? Tuesday, the 23rd of April 2024. Do you know where you are? I am in civil court, before you, for a guardianship hearing promoted by my daughter. He nodded and continued asking questions about my routine, about how I took care of the house, about my finances. I answered everything with calm and precision. Do you manage your own accounts? Yes. I pay all my bills on time. I do the grocery shopping within my budget. I have a small savings for emergencies. And your health? I have high blood pressure, controlled with medication. I take the pills every day at the same time. I have regular medical checkups. Do you feel capable of continuing to live alone? Completely. Why do you think your daughter initiated this process? I hesitated. I looked at Rachel. She was looking at me with a neutral expression, impossible to read. Because she wants my house, I said simply. And she believes that by getting me out of the way, she can have it. Rachel's lawyer stood up. Objection. My client acts out of maternal concern. The judge raised his hand. The witness is answering my question. Continue. Mrs. Martha, my daughter showed up at my house with strangers, planning to send me to a facility without consulting me. When I objected, she tried to make me appear incompetent. All of that because she wants something that is mine. And you have no desire whatsoever to move to an assisted living facility? None. I have lived in that house for 37 years. I raised my daughter there. It is my home. As long as I am capable of taking care of myself, it is where I want to be. The judge asked a couple more questions and then allowed me to sit down. I returned to my seat with my heart still racing. Then it was Rachel's turn to be called. She stood up and walked to the front with firm steps. The judge asked her similar questions about her concern, about what she had observed in my behavior. Rachel answered with a soft voice, almost sad. "I am very worried about my mom, Your Honor. She is getting older, and I fear for her safety. The house is big, it has stairs. What if she falls? What if there is an emergency and there is no one to help?" "Those are reasonable concerns," said the judge. "But your mother seems to be taking very good care of herself." "For now," Rachel insisted. "But what about in 6 months? In a year? Wouldn't it be better to ensure she is in a safe place before something bad happens?" Mr. Henderson stood up. "Your Honor, may I ask a question?" The judge nodded. Henderson looked at Rachel. "How frequently did you visit your mother before this incident?" Rachel blinked. "I visited her regularly." "Regularly how? Once a week? Every 2 weeks?" "More or less once a month." "And how long did you stay?" "It depends." "A few hours." "A few hours? Or a few minutes?" Rachel turned red. "I have a busy life. Work, family. I understand." "And in those quick monthly visits, did you notice any sign of mental incapacity in your mother?" "Well, not exactly. But did your mother ever forget to take her medicine?" "Not that I know of." "Did she ever leave pots on the stove, doors open, or bills unpaid?" "No. But that doesn't mean—" "Did your mother ever get lost or demonstrate confusion about where she was or who she was?" "No." "So," concluded Henderson, "you are asking for the guardianship of a woman who, by your own admission, has never demonstrated any real sign of mental incapacity." The judge interrupted. "I believe I have heard enough." There was a tense silence in the room while the judge reviewed his papers. I could barely breathe. "I am going to issue my decision now," he said. Finally, my heart stopped. I have analyzed all the submitted documents. I read 3 independent medical certificates, all attesting to the full mental capacity of Mrs. Martha. I read the social worker's report confirming that the respondent is living independently and adequately. He looked at Rachel. I also observed that the petitioner presented no concrete proof of incapacity, only vague accusations based on age and hypothetical concerns about the future. His voice became firmer. "Advanced age alone is not grounds for guardianship. Many people live productively and independently into very advanced ages. Mrs. Martha is 72, not 92. And even if she were 92, if she were in full possession of her mental faculties, she would have a right to her autonomy." He paused. "Regarding the alleged erratic behavior, I understand Mrs. Martha's actions perfectly. She protected her home and her privacy against what she rightly perceived as an invasion. That demonstrates judgment, not mental confusion." He looked directly at Rachel, and his expression hardened. "I see here a classic case of a family member trying to seize control of an elder's assets under the pretext of protection. This is unacceptable, and in some cases, can even constitute a crime." Rachel went pale. "Therefore, I deny the petition for guardianship. Mrs. Martha remains fully capable of managing her life, her assets, and her decisions. If in the future there is a real change in her mental condition, the matter can be reevaluated. But for now, the petition is dismissed." He banged the gavel. Hearing adjourned. I stood up with jelly legs. Henderson took my arm, smiling. "Congratulations, Mrs. Martha. You won." I looked at Rachel. She was standing, pale, lips pressed together. Her lawyer was saying something in her ear, but she didn't seem to be listening. Our eyes met one last time. There was nothing left to say. She had tried to take everything from me, and she had failed. We left the courthouse together, Henderson and I. Outside, the sun was shining. "And now what?" I asked. "Now you go back to your house and live your life. And if she tries something like this again, we will be ready." On the way back, I looked out the taxi window, processing everything. I had won. My house was still mine. My life was still mine. But the price had been high. I had lost my daughter, not physically, but emotionally. Whatever relationship still existed between us had died in that courtroom. When I got home, I sat in my favorite armchair and let the tears flow. They weren't tears of relief, although I felt that too. They were tears of mourning. Mourning for the daughter I thought I had, for the relationship that never truly existed, for the family that should have been. But amidst the tears, there was also something else. Strength, pride, the certainty that I had done the right thing. I hadn't bowed down. I hadn't let them treat me like a disposable object. I had fought for my dignity, for my autonomy, and I had won. In the following weeks, I established a new routine. A routine that was completely mine. I woke up early, drank coffee on the porch watching the sunrise, took my morning walk, tended the garden that was a little neglected. I met with Mrs. Higgins for coffee. I read the books I always wanted to read but never had time for. It was a simple life, but it was mine. Rachel didn't try to contact me. Not her, not Richard, not even Matthew. Sometimes I thought about my grandson. Did he understand what happened? Had Rachel told him some distorted version of the facts? I missed him. His rare visits, his clumsy hugs, the way he called me grandma. But I couldn't force a relationship. If Rachel wanted to keep me away from Matthew, that was her choice. A cruel choice, but hers. 2 months after the hearing, I received a letter. I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was from Matthew. With trembling hands, I opened it. Dear Grandma, I'm very sorry for what happened. I don't understand everything well, but I know my mom did something bad. My dad said you are angry and that it's better not to bother you, but I wanted you to know that I miss you. I miss your stories, your roast chicken, and when you taught me to take care of the plants. My mom doesn't know I'm writing this letter. I asked my teacher for help. I love you very much, Grandma. When I grow up and can decide, I am going to visit you. I promise. Your grandson, Matthew. I cried reading it. I cried out of sadness for the situation, but also out of joy knowing that my grandson still loved me. I kept the letter in a special box, along with old photos and other valuable memories. Someday, Matthew would be an adult. Someday he could make his own decisions, and when that day came, I would still be here waiting for him. Life went on. Months passed. I made friends with more neighbors. Mrs. Eleanor, who lived on the corner, was also a widow and loved playing cards. We started meeting every Thursday night to play and chat. Mr. Baker, from the corner store, always set aside the nicest fruit for me. For the lady who won in court, he would say with a proud smile. Apparently, the story had spread through the neighborhood. They saw me as the little old lady who didn't let herself be intimidated, and that brought a strange sensation, but a good one: respect. I started doing volunteer work at an animal shelter. I always liked animals but never had time. Now I did. 3 times a week I went there to help. I fed the cats, walked the dogs, cleaned the cages. It was hard work, but rewarding. And it was there that I met Claire. Claire was 19, studying veterinary medicine, and had been a volunteer for 3 years. She was sweet, attentive, full of energy. We talked a lot while we worked. She told me about college, about her dreams of owning her own clinic someday. I told her stories of my life, of the difficulties I went through raising Rachel alone. One day she asked me, Mrs. Martha, do you have grandkids? I have one, I replied. Matthew. But I don't have contact with him for now. Why? She asked with that innocent frankness of youth. I told her. Not all the details, but enough. Claire listened with eyes wide open. Your own daughter did that? She did. But how? You seem so lucid, so capable. Exactly, I said with a bitter smile. But she wanted my house and thought I would be easy to push aside. That's horrible, Claire whispered. Then, on impulse, she hugged me. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Martha. That hug meant more than she imagined. It felt good to receive genuine affection, without hidden agendas. Claire became a constant presence in my life. Sometimes she showed up at my house just to chat. She brought her veterinary textbooks and studied at my kitchen table while I cooked. It's quieter here than at my dorm, she would say. I liked the company. The house felt less silent, less empty. One day I prepared a special meal. Claire ate with a hearty appetite and then helped me wash the dishes. Mrs. Martha, she said while drying a plate, can I ask you a personal question? Sure. Have you ever thought about, I don't know, rebuilding your life? Meeting someone? I laughed. At 72? Why not? My grandmother met her second husband at 68. They were happy for 15 years before he passed away. The idea was absurd. But at the same time, it wasn't. Why not? I was still alive. I still had a lot to offer. I don't know, I said honestly. I've never thought about it. You should think about it. You deserve to be happy, Mrs. Martha. You deserve to have someone who values you. The words stayed spinning in my head after she left. Did I deserve to be happy after all? Yes. The answer came clear and firm. Yes, I deserved it. I started paying more attention to myself, taking better care of myself, not out of vanity, but out of self-respect. I bought new clothes, nothing extravagant, just pieces that made me feel good. I dyed my hair, covering the gray with a soft chestnut color. I started using a little light makeup. And it worked. Not in the sense of meeting someone romantically that didn't happen, but in the sense of feeling alive again, of seeing myself as something more than just a rejected mother or an estranged grandmother. I was Martha. Simply Martha. A 72-year-old woman with life ahead of her. 6 months after the hearing, I received another unexpected visit. The doorbell rang one Saturday afternoon. I checked the camera, and my heart skipped a beat. It was Matthew. Alone at my door with his backpack on his shoulder. I opened the door fast. Matthew looked at me with eyes full of tears. "Grandma, can I come in?" Of course, of course." I pulled him inside and hugged him tight. He cried on my shoulder. I didn't ask anything yet. I just held him, rubbing his back like I did when he was smaller. When he calmed down a bit, I took him to the kitchen and made him hot chocolate. We sat at the table. "What happened?" I asked gently. "They fought," he said with a voice still trembling. "My mom and my dad fought really bad." "Why?" "About money. It's always about money. My dad said my mom ruined everything when she tried to take your house. He said now no one in the family trusts her, that she destroyed her reputation." My heart tightened, not for Rachel, but for Matthew having to hear that. "And my mom screamed that it was all your fault, that you were selfish, that—" He stopped, looking at me with guilt. "Sorry, Grandma. I don't want to repeat what she said." "It's okay." I took his hand. "You don't have to. They are fighting a lot now. Every day. And I just wanted to come see you. I missed you." Tears burned my eyes. "I missed you too, my love." "Can I stay here?" he asked with a small voice. "Just for today. I'll go back tomorrow, I promise. I just don't want to be there right now." "Of course you can stay." We spent the afternoon together. I made his favorite roast chicken. We watched movies, talked about school, his friends, his guitar lessons, which I didn't know he was taking. It was like before, but better, because now I knew that every moment was valuable. At night, when it was almost time for him to leave, Matthew looked at me seriously. "Grandma, what really happened between you and Mom?" I took a deep breath. He deserved the truth, but a version appropriate for his age. "Your mom and I had a very serious disagreement. She thought it would be better for me to live somewhere else. I didn't agree, and things got complicated." "Because of the house?" "Partly. But the house is yours, right? You bought it." "Yes." He stayed silent for a moment. "I think I understand. My mom, sometimes she wants things, and when she doesn't get them, she gets very mad." The observation was so perceptive, so mature for a 10-year-old boy. "The important thing," I said, "is that you know none of this is your fault, and that I love you very much." "I love you too, Grandma." When I drove him back, he had given me the new address. They had moved. Rachel was waiting at the door. She said nothing, just watched as Matthew got out of the car and ran into the house. Our eyes met for half a second. There was no anger in her look anymore, only exhaustion, defeat. I could have felt pity, but I didn't. She had made her choices. A year passed since the hearing. My life was good. Not perfect life, never is, but genuinely good. I had my friends, my volunteering, my house. Matthew visited me sometimes, whenever he could escape for a few hours. Rachel didn't interfere anymore, probably realizing it would be useless. We never spoke about what happened. There was never a reconciliation or an apology. Just distance. A safe distance where neither could hurt the other. I was at peace with that. One afternoon, I received a call from Mr. Henderson. "Mrs. Martha, I have news. Your daughter put her house up for sale." "Oh," was the only thing I could say. "Apparently, they have financial problems. The marriage also seems to be going poorly. I heard rumors of a separation. I felt no satisfaction with the news, only a quiet sadness. Thank you for telling me, I said. I just thought you should know. In case she tries to approach you again, be vigilant. But Rachel didn't approach even when she sold the house, nor when she divorced Richard 3 months later, nor when she moved into a small apartment by herself. Matthew, now 11, came to tell me about every change. He split his time between his parents, who had joint custody. My mom is different, he told me once, quieter. I think she's sad. She probably is, I replied. Sometimes life teaches us difficult lessons. Are you still mad at her? I thought about the question. No, I'm not mad, just disappointed, and more cautious. Do you think you'll ever talk again? I don't know, sweetie. Maybe, or maybe not. Some things, when they break, don't go back to being how they were before. He nodded, processing that with the seriousness that characterized him. One Sunday morning, almost 2 years after the hearing, the doorbell rang. I looked at the camera, and my heart lurched. It was Rachel. Alone, without a lawyer, without evil plans. Just Rachel, looking older, more tired than I remembered. I hesitated. My hand stayed on the lock. Then I opened the door, but without removing the security chain. "Mom," she said, and her voice trembled. "Rachel." We stood there looking at each other through the crack in the door. "Can I come in?" she asked. "Depends." "For what?" "To talk." "For real." "No lawyers, no fights, just talk." I looked into her eyes and saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. Sincerity, vulnerability. I undid the chain and opened the door. She entered slowly, as if stepping on sacred ground she herself had profaned. We went to the living room. I sat in my armchair. She remained standing for a moment, then sat on the sofa. The silence stretched. "I was wrong," she said finally. "I was very wrong. And forgive me." I didn't answer. I just waited. When Richard suggested you should go to a home, it made sense in my head. The house was here, empty most of the time. You were alone. It seemed logical. Logical, I repeated, and the word came out bitter. I know. I know it was horrible, that it was selfish, that I treated you like a problem to solve, not like my mother. Tears began to run down her face. I lost everything, Mom. My marriage, my house, my reputation. The whole family hates me. Friends drifted away. Her voice broke. And the worst part. The worst is that I deserve it. I deserve every consequence. I felt something soften inside me. Not immediate forgiveness, but something resembling compassion. "Why are you coming now?" I asked. "Because I've been in therapy for 6 months, and my therapist made me realize that I spent my whole life taking you for granted, as someone who would always be there, who would always love me, who would always forgive me no matter what I did." She wiped her tears with the back of her hand, and when you told me no, when you defended yourself, I got furious. Because how dared you? How dared you deny me something I wanted? I nodded slowly. At least she was being honest. But now I understand. I understand that you weren't a resource of mine. You were a person with desires, needs, rights, and I treated you like nothing. More tears. I'm not coming to ask for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I know what I did, and that I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I took a deep breath. I let her words sink in. I processed each one. "Thank you," I said finally, "for apologizing, for recognizing it. Do you forgive me?" She asked with a voice full of fearful hope. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "Forgiveness isn't a switch you turn on and off. It's a process, and it's going to take time." She nodded, accepting it. "But," I continued, "I can tell you that I don't hate you, and that I am willing to try, little by little, with clear boundaries." "Thank you," she whispered. "It's more than I deserve." I didn't contradict her. We talked a little more about her therapy, about Matthew, about her life now. It wasn't easy. It wasn't comfortable. But it was real. When she left, I felt a weight I didn't know I was carrying lift from my shoulders. I didn't know if our relationship was going to be fixed. Maybe yes, maybe no, but at least now there was honesty. And honesty was a start. Today, at 74 years old, I look back and see everything I went through. The fight for my house, for my autonomy, for my dignity, the pain of being betrayed by the one I loved most, the strength I found inside myself when I needed it. Rachel and I are rebuilding slowly. She visits me once a week. Now sometimes we bring Matthew, we talk, we drink coffee, we try. It isn't like before, it never will be. But it is something. And for now, it is enough. I learned that getting older doesn't mean becoming invisible or disposable. I learned that I have the right to defend my decisions, even when the person on the other side is someone I love. I learned that I am stronger than I imagined, and I learned that my life, my house, my decisions are mine, and no one has the right to take them from me. So, what do you think? Should I have forgiven Rachel faster? Should I have been harsher? Did I do the right thing? Leave your opinion in the comments, and if this story touched you in some way, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share with whoever needs to hear that it is never too late to defend their own life. And if you want to support this channel even more and be part of our community, consider joining as a member. With that, you help me keep bringing real, important stories like this one. Thanks for listening.